The Food Lab. Surely you've heard of the Food Lab. You know, it's the brainchild of Kenji López-Alt. It started as a column on SearCids.com, and then it became a 1,000-page book by the same name, The Food Lab. In my previous video, I mentioned that I much prefer the column to the book, and in this video, I'll tell you why. So I record my videos in bulk. So by the time this video goes live, it's quite possible that internet will tear me to shreds for that statement, but I really hope not. If you watch this channel, you know how much I love Kenji's work. I mean, sometimes I don't even know where his cooking ends and my cooking starts. So many techniques that I have showed you in videos are based on Kenji's ideas. Reverse sear method for meat, vodka pie dough, brining beans before cooking, and many others. If I come across as critical in this video, I want to make it clear that my critique is not of Kenji's research or writing, it's only of how it holds together in the book form. I bought the book as soon as it came out as an expression of my support for the Food Lab concept. I think it is so wonderful that somebody out there uses empirical methods to design better cooking techniques, better cooking procedures. I think it's just fantastic. You know, if Kenji had a Patreon account, I would be one of his patrons. But he doesn't. So buying a book was one way to show support for his work. But I found that Kenji in a 1,000-page book form somehow was not as digestible as Kenji in the Food Lab column. Kenji is at his most brilliant if you give him a well-defined problem. For example, find a way to cook a steak at home that is least error-prone and uses the equipment most people have on hand. But in the book, the constraints are gone, and Kenji is free to write everything he knows about cooking, which is, quite frankly, a lot. The book has so many incredibly useful tidbits of information. It's just overwhelming. It feels like a fabulous first draft in terrible need of some editorial guidance. I'll come back to my favorite example of a steak. One of the Food Lab columns has this title: "The reverse sear is the best way to cook a steak, period." So you would think that if you were to read Kenji's book, you would quickly and easily arrive at this conclusion, right? Wrong. So there is a chapter on steaks, and in it Kenji uses 3 different methods. One that is given a pretty good amount of space is the frequent flipping, you know, where you constantly flip a steak about every minute. And yes, it develops a great crust, and it does work. The inside is nice and even, but it requires an awful lot of attention from a cook, and it is way more error-prone than reverse sear. He also talks about the beer cooler method. That's basically sous vide, but the book was published before sous vide equipment was easily accessible to home cooks, so Kenji was using a large beer cooler and a thermometer. Again, several different steaks, pork chops, rack of lamb is given using the beer cooler method. How much space does the reverse sear get? Well, it gets one recipe, tenderloin. That's basically it. Leaving this chapter, you would think that all those other methods were actually better. I mean, they get more book real estate. So I don't think you could easily come to the conclusion that you should try reverse sear, and not just on any tender cut of meat, as long as it's thick enough, but on pork chops and rack of lamb, etc. But wait, all you have to do is go from page 311 to page 635, where Kenji talks about large pieces of meat like roasts, and you'll finally get the scoop on the reverse sear method, also known as slow roasting. You know, that's true, but I thought the whole point of taking Food Lab columns and putting them into a book is to help you see overarching patterns, you know? And I actually found it to be more difficult to see those overarching patterns in the book than in the column. Books are great PR tools. They give food writers something to sell. They give consumers something to hold, something big and heavy and encyclopedic in scope. But I think sometimes cooking is better learned in smaller bites. Do you have Kenji's book? Do you read his Food Lab column on SearIsEats.com? Which one do you prefer and why? Let me know in the comments because I am really curious. For more thought-provoking culinary commentary, don't forget to subscribe to Helen's Kitchen channel, and if you are ever in the Boston area, maybe I'll see you in one of my classes.